All right. Hello. Welcome. We are here today with LaNicia Duke, and this is the Tillamook County Pioneer Podcast. We are focusing on nonprofit efforts and community-led efforts that impact our readers on the coast, and now with the introduction of our podcast listeners. So, with no further ado, I would love for LaNicia to take the floor.
Thank you. And just to correct pronunciation of my name is LaNicia.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yes, no worries. And thank you for having me. I am excited to be here with you today and want to share just a little bit with you about my organization. When we first started in 2017, we were the Love Coalition. In 2020, we transitioned our name to Humble Beginnings, and our main body of work through our program, the Black Rural Network, really began as an idea towards the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, just to sort of highlight the fact that there are Black people that live in rural communities throughout the state, and that there is, even though there are small amounts of diverse populations when it comes to race and ethnicity, to really highlight that we are in those spaces, and also that rural communities have a lot. Um, they have a lot of social capital that we take for granted or that we disregard because a lot of times we disagree on things. But I've found that rural communities, even when systems fail us, we show up for each other. And to really be able to highlight the strengths of rural communities while also being able to advocate for the needs of rural communities across the state.
I agree. I think that's amazing. I think a lot of our listeners may or may not know, but I'm assuming because they're the pioneer listeners, they probably know the racist history of Oregon's founding. And I am wondering how that impacts you as a Black woman. In Do you see the differences between the systemic racism that is still really pretty baked into our governing system? When you look at the statistics of leaders in power, they are rarely Black women, and they certainly don't represent by proportion any any one population except wealthy older white men. So as a Black woman, how do you feel the differences between the needs of Black people within rural communities versus urban communities, and specifically within Oregon, do you still see the roots of that racist past in your day-to-day interactions, or do you feel like it's getting better?
I'm going to first start off by saying I am only sharing my experience with this answer. I'm not speaking for Black people in general, as a whole, or in part. I'm only speaking on my own personal experience. I'll say a couple of things. Racism is not unique to Oregon, right? Racism is a global problem. If it wasn't racism, it was tribalism before that. Without tribalism, there's classism. So I think it's fair to acknowledge that there's always been an ism since humanity has been in existence.
Right, right.
Um, I so there's that. Um, Oregon, the way Oregon embedded it into its governance at its inception will like make it unique in that aspect. But I really don't think that racism is something, like I said, that's unique to rural America,
Mm.
to one part of the country, to Oregon specific, especially when you consider that the Pacific Northwest Territory was bigger than just what we know to be Oregon now, even back then,
Mhm.
right? And I'll also say that I don't believe it is my job to call people racism or racist. I think that we have all been affected by racism. Some people may never understand how, why. And I'm at a point to where I'm not trying to beat dead horses, right?
Right, right.
There are people that get it, there are people that don't. I think that in my lived experience, I was born and raised in Southern California. I grew up in Redondo Beach. I graduated from high school in Manhattan Beach, but I also grew up attending the oldest Black established church in the city of Los Angeles that was founded by a former slave. I also know the story a little bit of my grandparents, my mom's parents, born in 1919 and 1920 in Oklahoma in this country, and know a little bit of what they went through. But yet, and still, even with their struggle and their sacrifice, they were still able to give birth to greatness in their DNA.
Mm,
And I really think, for me at least, because I live my life through a faith lens, I believe that nothing is bigger or outside of God's
mhm,
control or thought, right? And even what I believe is sometimes there are bad things that can happen to us that can still be changed for our good. So, with that said, I will say this. Um, have I had, I don't know if it's, I've had encounters with ignorance, sure. But that's life as it relates to race. And it's not just people who are conservative, who are Republican, liberals are ignorant about race a lot of the times, progressives. So when we try to pinpoint what that person looks like, I think that we should broaden our stroke. Um, Sometimes I'm more uncomfortable in liberal spaces than I am in conservative spaces. So I'll say that.
I've said the exact same thing for a variety of reasons, and it's like, am I just a Republican now? I'm not. I am pretty openly non-voting at this point, but I'm a strong Democrat. And I feel like it's important to say those things when you're talking about politics as a journalist so that people can at least understand the lens that you're speaking from. But
Well,
I,
can I say
oh
something
yeah,
to that point?
please, yeah,
Uh,
please do.
so I'll say this: I am a firm believer that it does not matter who holds whatever office in whatever seat; it will never change my character.
Right.
And I
Same.
think
Yeah.
that's the difference. But when you have to classify, so I've been a non-affiliated voter in Oregon pretty much since I've been here, except for like if I wanted to vote in a primary because you know how politics works.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, but a couple of things. One, you take, for instance, the transportation issue in Clatsop Columbia County,
Mhm.
where Sunset Empire Transit District ran out of funds. They shut their doors. ODOT is now working with them with the state, to look at what happened, and also they've got some service back up now, but it's not what it was, and people are still struggling in the process. Guaranteed, the people who are struggling because of the system's failures don't care if the person who tries to fix it is a Republican or a Democrat.
Exactly.
Most issues in our communities, no matter if it's healthcare, transportation, education, um, are like, I really don't believe that most of the issues that affect us the most can be classified as red and blue.
Right.
And it's unfortunate that that is part of systemic issues in our systems. That sounded weird. But
No, yeah, it is unfortunate. It's a system that was built for a different world and we haven't changed it
well,
very much. Yeah.
it's built for division,
Yeah.
right? And the other thing is, again, because I do believe in God, I believe in Jesus, I believe in the power of the Holy Spirit more than I believe in who's president of the United States of America.
Hmm.
And I think, or at least what I try to do, I will never force anyone to try to change their mind on anything, but what I will do always is help create safe spaces for people who just want to grow in relationship.
Hmm. That's really beautiful. Is that the reason for the Love Coalition to start? Is that how it started with that mission?
Yes,
That's
actually,
beautiful.
because there's so many things to fight about, and I'm more focused and centered on what are the things that actually bring us together, right? because I really believe if there was no racism, there would still be classism. Like
Hmm.
there's always going to be reasons for us to be divided. And it's a choice that we get to make where we set our intention at any given moment, even changing minds, right? So I was born and raised in church. Um, I'm a third generation preacher's kid. My mother is a pastor. My grandfather was a pastor. Almost everybody in my family does some form of ministry. And I, as I grow in my relationship with my faith, I change my mind along the way because things change. My
Hmm.
understanding changes, my perception changes, who I am is changing. And I think where we collect issues is when we refuse to acknowledge that none of us are perfect. None of us have it all together. None of us know everything about all things.
Yeah,
Um, and
we need
like
each other.
well, and grace, right? But
Hmm.
I also think in especially in a lot of DEI conversations, it has again, in my experience, been that there's a lot of, if you're this, you're that. If you don't say this, then you must be that.
Hmm.
um and again, there's no room for grace, and it makes me wonder people's relationship with themselves, right? Because I come to this work based on my relationship with myself. My relationship with myself dictates my relationships with others,
Hmm.
and the healthier I am with myself, the healthier I can be with other people. But unfortunately, in some of these conversations, we have broken people. And I'm not talking about just DEI, I'm talking about in systems. We have broken people trying to create wholeness.
Hmm. I feel like you just nailed I mean, that's it right there, the crux of it, that we have broken people who are trying to make wholeness. I would love to hear your thoughts on the, the things that we can do as a community to support people in those moments, because it seems like that brokenness is what is the root cause in every major issue. If it's war, if it's famine, if it's fentanyl, if it's poverty, it's this broken system. Can you are your ambitions to change some of that? Are you thinking of becoming a politician? I mean, you're already a community leader in so many ways, and you've created this amazing network, and it seems like you have a lot of not just ambition, but foresight. You're saying really important things. Are you considering potentially going into that system and changing it yourself?
Well, I'll tell you what I am doing. I was appointed by our previous governor, Kate Brown, to serve on the Environmental Equity Committee that was formed out of the Racial Justice Council. I was also just confirmed by the Senate and appointed by our newest governor to um, to be on the Oregon Commission for Black Affairs. There are four commissions out of this office. There's the Commission on Women Affairs, the Commission on Hispanic Affairs, the Commission on Asian and Pacific Islander Affairs, and then the Commission on Black Affairs. And I think where I am right now, at least in the last year and a half, really specifically, is I can't teach what I don't know. And so I've been learning a lot about how our systems work. For me, it started in Tillamook County, being able to learn how our local um, systems are driven, and then to the state level. And right now, I'm just really trying to figure out the best way, not just in making relationships with those who are in those seats of power, but more so the people in community who I do believe need to be more empowered to use their power, right? I think a lot of times, especially for when folks are working in systems, they have to draw a line of what it means to be a civilian and still be civically engaged, even though they say are a state employee. And I think that's some of the word that comes to my mind is corruptness, and so I'm just going to go with it, of the system, right? It robs people of their power to be empowered, to use that power. And so I really would like to start helping educate communities, folks, In my, like for me, really folks who are making between 55,000, 50,000, and $100,000 a year, we are that lower base of a struggling already middle class. And if we collapse with, rent cost, food cost, wages staying where they are, especially in rural communities where most long-term jobs are never going to amount to more than, 20, $25 an hour. And so we keep people perpetuated in generational poverty and then keep telling them that they're lazy at the same time. And
Yep.
so no matter what my aspirations are, I do hope that my work is really about helping people take their power back and understand, you know, our systems are so convoluted intentionally. It makes people confused. It makes people not want to engage because there's so many layers. Even just with the transportation issue, and then let alone you start talking about access to health care, and the housing needs. Um, and I think we are at a point in humanity across the globe, not just here in Oregon, definitely not just in rural communities, not black or white, brown, even gender identity, that the dollar, money, not just a dollar, because it's the yen some places or whatever, but money. Um, when money's not enough to fix our problems, what's left?
Hmm.
And
Yep.
I think that we have a heart issue, and until we stop making everything about money and really getting back to people,
Right.
like we are our biggest asset and we are our biggest curse.
Exactly. I can see that you are a pastor's daughter. I can hear it. Um, I love listening to you talk. I could listen to you speak all day. We have a few more minutes here on this podcast because we have the free version of Zoom, and I make sure to say that every time so that some of our sponsors can start sponsoring our podcasts, and maybe we could get some longer format discussions. But I would love to give you a kind of a last opportunity to appeal to the audience on in any way, whether it's to learn more about the Love Coalition or the Black Girl Network. You can tell people how to get more involved, send them to your website, whatever it is that you feel is the most important. Now is the best time for that.
Sure. I think I'll just use this opportunity to encourage people to look inward. I think that we are in a time of really being able to go in to introspection, to take stock of what we believe, why we believe it, who told us to believe it, especially when it comes to things about ourselves. Because I believe that we will sometimes believe lies that other people tell us because we have yet to find our own truth. And I would just encourage people, um, as the weather is getting better and we're able to be outside and Oregon for me is one of the best states when it comes to nature, to go and be and sit, find those places of stillness, even if it's uncomfortable. Some of the best things we can do is learn how to think about nothing so that we can just start learning how to be, being more settled and having more peace and anchoring within ourselves. And then I think that that will help make a better world because then we attract what we are. And when we have peace within us, it's the easiest way to create peace around us.
That is very, very beautiful. If people wanted to get in touch with you, if they wanted to join the network, how do they reach you? How do they find you?
We are on Facebook. We are on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. My name is spelled LA capital NICIA. Last name is Duke. My email is lduke at blackruralnetwork.org, all one word. And honestly, um, I'm thankful for support. When I'm not looking for it, It always shows up when it's needed. Um, and I just look forward to seeing how not just my work, but how our communities evolve into really being um, the change that we all so desperately want and need.
Lovely. And with that, I will thank our audience. This has been the Tillamook County Pioneer Podcast interviewing LaNicia Duke. And I hope I got your name right this
Yes,
time. Perfect.
yes.
And thank you so much, LaNicia, for joining us. And I look forward to hopefully seeing you in the future at some point.
Yes. Thank you so much. And you too. Take care.